Hey there, Skullheads. I am Snags.
And I'm Ol Silky.
And we're back on the attack for the second part of our three-part Stones Odyssey. This
Episode
time we're going to be
99.
profiling the episode 99. We're on the verge. We're going to be profiling the Mick Taylor years.
Yeah.
Rolling Stones, part 2.
Picking up from part 1, you've got your classic British Invasion series of albums, a lot of covers, a lot of brand new writing, trying to write hits and songs, and but lumped in with all the other 60s bands, the Stones could have, if they had ended in late 60s with those 11 albums that they had at the time, it would have been a good run. But
they'd have been like the Animals or the Yardbirds, or.
But I think they came into their own in the 70s. They really did, and with the Beatles breaking
they really
up,
did.
They could stand in their own light.
It's interesting because there was the problem of touring and playing large venues. Rock and roll up until the Beatles is mostly hoedowns and sock hops and all that shit. Very easy for someone like Elvis to play the county fair or whatever. But then you get to these fucking arenas and stadiums, and you couldn't hear the band because the modern PA system had not been invented yet. Yeah. And so the Beatles' reaction to that was, well, let's stop touring. And then they broke up because of Yoko. And then the Stones' reaction was like, well, let's figure it out. And it would be interesting. I don't know the answer, but it'd be interesting to go digging down into how and why the modern PA system for these large venues was created, and if the Stones had anything to do with it. Pete Townsend has a direct relationship with the development of the Marshall amplifier, which is an interesting story. When we do our Who episode at some point, we'll get into that.
Well, you had a lot of bands in the early 60s influenced by the Stones and the Beatles, touring and playing in small clubs, and just the demand got bigger and bigger. And I don't think you really saw rock and roll really take off where people were noticing, hey, we can make a lot of money touring. I think that really hit in the late 60s with all the grassroots bands, all the smaller bands.
Well, you had all these bands coming up: Allman Brothers, Deep Purple, Black Sabbath, all these bands that would become, especially those last two, arena rock staples of the 70s. And this whole concept of arena rock, the Stones trailblazed that shit.
Yeah.
They were some of the first ones out there playing those venues.
Yeah, with Led Zeppelin creating, massive record sales and touring, they were scrambling to get
Zeppelin was they were the kings of 70s arena rock, arguably, for sure.
And Aerosmith, it all
and then of course this is a perfect place for every episode mention of Kiss, another arena rock staple.
Yeah. So my thing I was talking about with a few people is how bands would ride the wave. Take Kiss. They had 6 albums, and from those 6 albums, they're able to ride the wave to this day. They're playing shit from those albums. The Stones had all those 11 albums in the 60s, but the albums we're going to talk about tonight, that's their wave, where to this day they play stuff from these 5 albums they're filling arenas because
Yeah, and I think to be fair, it started with the last album that Brian Jones was a full contributor to with Beggar's Banquet. It really started with that one.
yeah, and before, otherwise, so they're playing like the real meat Stones, the Beggars, Let It Bleed, Sticky Fingers, Exile.
Mm-hmm.
They
That's the
play that
Grand
stuff,
Slam.
but then they'll play Mother's Little Helper, or I Can't Get No Satisfaction, some of those 60s stuff.
Yeah,
And
I think
they're filling arenas.
It's a combination, and you and I, for years, I can't even remember who coined the term or when we started calling it the Grand Slam, but Beggars, Exile, Sticky Fingers, and Let It Bleed are the Grand Slam. It was 4 home run albums in a row that are just unparalleled, perfect. There's nothing bad you can say about them. They're amazing. They're classics. They're right up there with, Physical Graffiti and all the rest of the classics.
And Exile is like the rock and roll Bible. It's
it really is. And
18 songs. You've got every style, rockers, blues.
That album
ballad,
is dripping with so much soul. It's amazing. It was made by 5 British guys. It's amazing.
What's amazing too, if you get into Exile a little bit, is how blown out on drugs, and they had no schedule, but somehow they managed to lash together an unbelievably incredible album. But that's the talent. Like, you look at Pink Floyd live at Pompeii, they're blown out of their minds on drugs. Yet, if you listen to Pompeii, which is just come out streaming and everything, you can check it out, and the video for it, it's back out on DVD and stuff. They're so blown out on drugs, they've lost their main guy, yet they still are able to. If you watch that live at Pompeii, they are white hot. Their music output at that point, they're so their creativity is just blowing out of them.
Well, that reminds me of the story of when Lemmy recorded Silver Machine with Hawkwind, and that single was actually a live song. There was no studio version of Silver Machine. They put a live version of Silver Machine on the studio album.
Right.
But when he recorded that, they were playing a gig, and he was just so whacked out of his mind he couldn't put his bass on. And the roadies hung the bass on Lemmy, and they pushed him towards the microphone and stood him there and said, "Go." And he fucking nailed it. And he can't remember it either. And he fucking nailed it. So I don't know.
So before, we've touched on the Stones a little bit. I don't know if we mentioned it last week, but the members of Alice Cooper are getting back together. New album coming out in July.
Yeah, we were all over that.
That's just week. Epic. That is, now that I say that, I remember. But mid-July, that's coming out. I cannot wait. The single sounds so much like something right out of '74. I'm super excited about that. But anyway, so episode 99, the Stones, Charlie Watts, Keith Richards, Bill Wyman, Mick Jagger, and they get Mick Taylor from John Mayall's Blues Breakers. And Mick Taylor, incredible slide guitarist, sits in a little bit on Let It Bleed, but Let It Bleed, like we were saying, is mostly Keith Richards.
We were saying that before we started recording, but Let It Bleed is Keith Richards. This is really one of the few Stones albums where it's mainly Keith Richards. You got Mick Taylor plays slide guitar on one track, electric guitar on another track. Brian Jones plays congas on one track and harmonica on another track. This is the only album with both those guys on it. But Keith Richards plays electric guitar on every track except for 3. He plays acoustic guitar on 5 tracks. He plays slide guitar on 3 tracks. He plays bass guitar on 1 track. He's all over this album. And it's an amazing album. And Keith
had to really step up. because when they toured, Brian Jones would just towards the end there he would just miss shows, not show up. The dynamic between Keith and Mick versus Brian Jones, they just they had moved on, and
he wasn't quite as bad as Sid Barrett, where Sid Barrett would just stand there and hold his guitar, and they would keep playing. But he was on his way there, before the contractor that was working for him killed him.
When you see them, even in 25 by 5, when the Stones, when they get to that point in 25 by 5, where Brian Jones is found dead and everything, they're not like, I used to think they were kind of heartless. But it's a frustrating thing when you watch your friend self-destruct to that level and then hurt the band. The one thing that galvanized all of you to go forward and become the Rolling Stones, and he just, in a way, he just shit all over that. So there's some resentment. There's
and it probably got a little bit different. Well, obviously the whole thing with Keith and Brian's
Anita
girl, that was the. But also, it's just you're writing all these songs, putting in all this work, and he's walking around calling it his band. That's going to cause some tension too.
Yeah, and just his arrogance, and then to watch somebody just self-destruct to that level. I wouldn't want to hang out with somebody that could barely keep their head up.
Let's let's look at the tracks on this album, because I'm looking at them right now, and just I've heard this album a jillion times. I'm looking at the track listing, and I'm amazed once again. Just
what for Let It Bleed?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Beggar's Banquet, how they started off the Grand Slam with the masterpiece Sympathy for the Devil, right?
Yeah.
They start this one off with probably the one song that can compete with Sympathy for the Devil when it comes to sending chills up your spine. Fucking Give Me Shelter.
Give Me Shelter.
God damn, man. And then
and there's a point in that song where when the girl's screaming rape, murder, and her voice cracks, you hear them in the booth just, when she nails that note, you hear somebody say, yeah, or something.
Yeah. It's just an amazing fucking song with the backing vocals and all the rest of it. Every song on here is perfect. Love in Vain, Country Honk, which is honky tonk women country style. Live with Me, which is just a funk rock jam. Yeah. God damn. With one of the two amazing funk rock jams on this album. And then Let It Bleed, which is a great sing-along kind of country song.
It's kind of a dig at Let It Be, but just so good.
And the thing is, this came out before Let It Be came out, but Let It Be was in the can, had already been recorded, and the Stones were aware of it. So they're kind of fronting on the Beatles here. They're like, they know there's this album, Let It Be, in the can, or at least a song. I think the album was originally going to be called Get Back, but they know this about this song, Let It Be, and they're fronting on them. That's eventually going to come out. Let's drop Let It Bleed before theirs comes out.
Yeah.
Midnight Rambler, which is Keith Richards' favorite Stones song, which is amazing, and that's one in the live version. You hear the guy go, "God damn!" Someone in the audience.
Just they dropped the wall, man. Charlie Watts, they were just so tight there. Phenomenal.
And then Keith rocking the lead vocals on "You Got the Silver,"
which is one of the best love songs ever. Because it's not syrupy bullshit. It's like, you have everything. You've got the silver, you got the gold. Just pouring it out.
Poetic analogy and shit. It's good, yeah. And then the other amazing jaw-dropping funk rock jam on this, Monkey Man. Just amazing fucking song. And then it ends with the fucking anthem of that whole generation, which was used in the Big Chill soundtrack to great effect, you can't always get what you want.
Which is really another kind of 60s anthem.
Yeah.
That's more back with Decca, and this would wrap up Decca, Let It Bleed, but they owed Abco one more song, and this is right around that time they recorded Cocksucker Blues as a way to go, here's your single, fuck you. And that song they couldn't release it because
right. And I'm gonna put the you can get there's a documentary, Cocksucker Blues.
Yeah,
it's got the song in it, and it's also got footage of like roadies fucking groupies in the airplane and all kinds of crazy shit. It's the documentary that couldn't be released. And you can get it off of dvdlady.com. I'll throw the link in the on the click pit for this episode. I've got it. It's great. You got it. Any self-respecting Stones fan has to have
you have to have that.
Cocksucker Blues.
Now some of the things in that movie were done strictly for the camera, but it's certainly that level of debauchery certainly did go on.
Yeah, it was done for the camera one more time.
Right.
Like it was done yesterday without the camera.
Yeah, exactly. But that album, Let It Bleed, is just ridiculous. And continuing that level of white hot intensity that Beggars really started. And but by this point, 1970, they were broke. They were completely broke, and they wanted to start their own record label, which Sticky Fingers would be the first album to have. I forget the whack job. Andy Warhol. Andy Warhol designed the tongue.
He also designed the album cover with it had a real zipper on it. That was this, shot of a dude's. Motley Crue ripped off this album cover with Too Fast for Love, shot of some dude's crotch. The Stones had a zipper that you could unzip. I never had the actual original album, so I don't know.
My mom had a couple copies of it.
So when you unzip it, what's in there?
It's just the zipper line.
Oh, that's that it?
Yeah, but
when you take the album big
out,
schlong popping out.
No. When you take the album out, it's somebody in their BVDs.
Okay.
And then the back of the Sticky Fingers album was the ass, just like the Motley Crue ripoff. And
they completely ripped that shit off.
What's interesting is South America, you can get, and I still want to get this. There's a Mexico or South America. Their version of the album cover is this oil can and a pair of fingers coming up out of the can.
That's weird.
And it says Sticky Fingers, and it's but the can's open, and it's like just a real bizarre look, but it's the whole album. Just seemed like a cool collectible,
This one is packed with amazing songs too.
Yeah, they were on fire at this point. Yeah. They're so just their creative juices blowing out. Get Your Yayas came out, and that is just an incredible live album.
It is really, really good live album, yeah.
And there's a 40th anniversary.
That's their best. This is their best live album for sure.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But there's a 40th anniversary deluxe box set that still has that show, and then some unreleased tracks of them live. And then it's disc 3 has all the opening Ike and Tina. There's DVD footage of some of that stuff. Worth having.
Yeah, I think on that tour, Chuck Berry opened for them for a while. Tina opened for them. I think there might have been a third opening act on
Yeah,
that tour.
BB King, I think, is in there. But Get Your Yayas really captures, as well as the movie Gimme Shelter, all right around that time. Before we get to Sticky Fingers, we have to mention they did a concert in Hyde Park where they released some doves and Mick read some poem that's supposed to mean more than I think it
It was
meant.
it was a tribute to Brian Jones since he
Yeah.
had been killed by his
roadie or drugs, or
con.
he was on his way out.
Well, the guy that admitted he killed him, the contractor that was working on his house. Yeah,
right. So they did all that. Gimme Shelter. They do this free show out in Altamont, a speedway out in California, and somebody thought it'd be a good idea to have the Hells Angels as their security there.
If you listen to the back history of this free concert, if you listen to the audiobook or you read the book True Adventures of the Rolling Stones,
Stanley Booth,
there's a lot of stuff in there about the beginning of that tour. The press was giving them a lot of shit for the price of the concert tickets. So, they were probably charging a whopping $7 or something, when people are used to only paying $2.50 or whatever insane. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure if you look at the price of those concert tickets now, you have it in your wallet every day. It's but at the time it was, oh no, it's the Animals only
these
charge.
Hippies would bitch, and it's like, dude, let's see your band.
First of all, take a shower and get a job, and second of all, shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
but
we should be able to see it for free.
Everything should be free. I believe that everybody should work for free and give me shit. That's called slavery. You're supposed to be against it,
right?
But anyways, seriously, the ticket prices, whatever they were, they were higher than what the Animals would charge at the time or whatever, and so they were getting a lot of shit, and the press was like, well, you guys need to do a free concert at some point to make up for this. And that's the irony. No good deed goes unpunished. This was them succumbing to the social pressure to do a free concert to make up for charging $7.50 or whatever they were charging for their tour.
So this guy, his first name was Meredith. I forget his last name. But he had a white girlfriend, and in the footage in Gimme Shelter, they actually show it's as if he's waving this gun around, and he certainly may have been, but the debate is, was he waving the gun around after these Hells Angels were fucking with him? It's hard to say. The end result is they beat this guy to death with pool cues. They basically stomp a mud hole in his ass.
The whole hiring Hells Angels for security is not the brightest move on the planet. That was not the smartest thing to do.
But it's hard to say just what went on, but they certainly just killed this guy. And it's such a tumultuous time, the late 60s, a lot of racial tension, Vietnam going on, just so much to deal with. But they always say that the Gimme Shelter and the death at Altamont was the death of the 60s.
That and the Manson murders are the two things that are cited as the death of the 60s for sure.
So, by the time the sun came up in the 70s, the Beatles were gone. A lot of your 60s bands were dead and gone. Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, and Jim Morrison. I mean, they really slammed the door on the 60s. And we went into just a really, to me, we grew up in the 70s, and the 70s were not there's a lot of romantic light shed on the 70s musically, and I share some of that, but we grew up in the 70s, and it was not ideal. Let's just say.
Yeah, especially if you were raised by heathen savage hippies like we were.
Savages. I would have done better with wolves, I think.
If you ever wonder why we hate hippies so much, we've been there.
Yeah.
We know it. We know it too well.
Yeah, there's a certain smell that I just will not condone.
Yeah.
But anyway, Sticky Fingers comes out in April of 71. This is their 9th studio album. And you think about how huge the Stones were by 71 with only 9 studio albums. That's pretty fucking incredible.
Yeah.
2 live albums and 9 studio albums. And then just a myriad of greatest hit compilations and on 2 coasts, Europe and America. So there was a lot of repackaging, and going forward from 71 on, it would be the same album. When it came out, they didn't short you, and you got to buy this Europe version for one song. It was streamlined.
A lot of that's stopped. I guess AC/DC was still getting that treatment with the Australian version and the American version, but in a large part, a lot of that had stopped with these English bands.
Yeah. And so going forward, what they would do instead is there would be a B-side singles, EPs. Those would still collect some of these non-album songs for the collectors, I think, really. But Sticky Fingers, like you had started to talk about, it's a Spanish issue. If you look on Wiki and scroll down, you'll see that cover, Fowler's West India treacle, whatever that is, and it's like a oil can with some chick's fingers jutting out. It's pretty funny cover, But Brown Sugar, Bitch.
Yeah, let's talk about those songs.
Oh,
Can't You Hear Me Knocking? Fucking amazing. You Gotta Move, Fred McDowell cover.
Yeah, and that's Mick Taylor just stretching out on that slide guitar.
Yeah, so
good.
Bitch, an amazing song, which Kiss based Deuce on Bitch.
Really?
So, Deuce was inspired by Bitch. They're like, let's write a song kind of like Bitch. And actually, and God knows how this is the case, but I Love It Loud is based on My Generation. Vinnie Vincent and Gene Simmons were like, let's write a song like My Generation. Somehow I Love It Loud is. But anyways, Deuce is based on Bitch. And Bitch is just fucking, all these songs are amazing. I can't stop raving about every song on these 4 albums.
I got the Blues and Moonlight Mile, Dead Flowers. Those are just, it's just epic. And what's funny is when I was reading the complete Sherlock Holmes,
Sister Morphine, you forgot Sister Morphine.
Yeah, Sister Morphine's in here. But when I was reading the complete Sherlock Holmes, the soundtrack, I would basically Beggar's Banquet, Let It Bleed, Sticky Fingers was just on a loop.
Well, dude, that was our complete early 20s.
Yeah.
I mean, that was these albums were just always on.
Yeah. And they something about Midnight Rambler and Moonlight Mile just captured some of these scenes in these Sherlock Holmes mysteries.
Sure.
To this day, when I listen to some of the Stones, I go back in my head of these Arthur Conan Doyle stories.
My and this isn't Let It Bleed. This is Sticky Fingers we're on, but one of my most vivid Let It Bleed memories is, in his early 20s. My mom is off in some hippie commune somewhere out in, out in the western United States, doing her thing, and I had nowhere to go on fucking Thanksgiving and that kind of shit. I'm like 23,
Right.
and your ex-wife, the Terminator, was having, I think your dad was off fucking around too somewhere, and your ex-wife, the Terminator, her family, you were going to Thanksgiving with her family, and y'all invited me down there. I think I drove down to Noonan, Georgia or something.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, and had Thanksgiving with you guys, because what else the fuck am I going to do,
Right. Yeah.
And I remember driving back on the highway, and I think I crashed on the couch, and the next morning I'm driving back on the highway listening to Let It Bleed on cassette.
Nice.
I had the cassette. I put that in there.
That's epic.
These albums were the soundtrack to our lives, man. Fucking Sticky Fingers. I got that when I got a vinyl copy of that in high school. I remember just sitting in my room blasting the fuck out of that.
We started talking about that before. This band specifically, as they came out on CD, I remember having England's Newest Hitmakers, and I couldn't believe that I was holding the Rolling Stones, of all bands, their very first album. And I knew my mom had some of them, but they were so played out that the needle would just go across the record and you wouldn't. So to have the CD and be like, oh my God, I'm finally going to be able to hear this album. And I'd seen the cover a billion times, but, couldn't hear it. So it was just so cool to slowly collect these albums as they came out. And they really were a huge part of our soundtrack coming up.
Dead Flowers is one of the funnest songs to sing along to. I have to say.
Say it with Dead Flowers is just the best line.
I think I'm gonna have to just break some out real quick. Break off a couple. Well, when you're sitting there in your silk upholstered chair, talking to some rich folk that you know, I hope you won't see me in my ragged company. You know I never could be alone. Take me down, little Susie. Take me down. I'm getting the neck. I know you think you're the queen of the underground, and you can send me dead flowers every morning.
So good.
Send me dead flowers by the mail.
It's like listening to a creek bed.
It's that song is so much fun to sing along with. But anyways, was Mick Jagger just here? Because I think I just heard him singing.
I know, it's totally. But yeah, that's it's just incredible, these albums coming in the way they did. Just this is the new Stones out. It's just incredible.
Yeah,
it really is.
It's pretty amazing. The fuck?
Dead flowers.
Oh, I just got some dead flowers dropped off on my laptop by the wife.
Nice.
Yeah, that's nice.
Nice.
See, asking ye shall receive.
There it is. Yeah.
So Jimmy Miller. Let's talk about Jimmy Miller just a little bit.
Yeah, I was about to bring that up. Their producer.
Lay it down. Lay down the knowledge on Jimmy Miller.
Jimmy Miller, would produce a lot of these albums, and you think about Van Halen and Ted Templeman. Just certain bands find that producer that really stokes the fire and brings out the brilliance. And somebody might, Bob Rock and Metallica, and I would say Fleming Rasmussen really captured them.
Yeah, Bob Rock ruined Metallica.
Yeah,
what he did.
But U2's best album still to this day is that Black album.
The Black album. So Jimmy Miller produced Beggar's Banquet, Let It Bleed, Sticky Fingers, Exile on Main Street, The Complete Grand Slam. He produced Goat's Head Soup. Oh, holy shit. And I think I knew this, but then he went on to produce 2 other perfect fucking albums, Overkill and Bomber by Motorhead.
Yeah, I knew he was. Yeah, I was getting to that with the Motorhead, but yeah. Just ridiculous, this guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, these albums, and by the time they get to France, they leave England. They're tax exiles. They take this whole, entourage to a French villa or whatever you want to call it,
chateau or whatever.
Chateau Marmont, I think, is where they were. But they just take the whole. Everyone's there. There's stories, possibly in True Adventures, where Brian Jones' little boy shows up, and they all were taken aback at just. Here's a spitting image of a little Brian Jones.
All right. Here's the name of the villa was Nelcote, Nellcote, and it was in Villefranche-sur-Mer.
It would have been Nelcote. Nelcote is how that would be pronounced.
Something, it's fucking French, so who knows?
Yeah,
and it's near Nice. And I remember Keith saying he had a motorboat, and he would get on a motorboat to kind of go into town nearby. So apparently it was on the water, but it was just this big house, and they're just in the house partying and recording this album, and it's got that vibe to it,
Yeah.
It's a great fucking album.
It really is, and but so they lashed together all these songs, a lot of. Where they would jam all night, be hungover the next day, groupies coming and going, drug dealers coming and going. They were, as far as anyone else was concerned, they were completely broke. They now had Alan Klein as their manager, who had also managed the end of the Beatles. So this guy was all about making money and using them to do to make more money.
Yeah, he was a good manager. You didn't fuck with him. A lot of people were. It was kind of like Peter Grant. A lot of people were
pound of flesh from them.
A lot of people were afraid of him. It's like Peter Grant from Led Zeppelin. It's kind of mafioso manager kind of style.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the tracks. We got 4 sides. This is a double album. Not one bum note on this album. It's perfect. It's
there's
perfect.
nothing wasted. There's no filler in this thing. But let me get the list up here.
It starts with Rocks Off, which is an amazing, right out the gate, just rocker.
The Jamming with Edward was an EP that never. That's Nicky Hopkins and Ry Cooder. I don't think. Mick Taylor's not on that at all.
Well, let's stick to the official releases first. Let's get through the Grand Slam here.
So Rocks Off leads it, starts it off. Just exactly what it's called, Rocks Off. They just tear through that. Slim Harpo cover Shake Your Hips. Rip This Joint is great. Tumbling Dice was a lead-off single from that.
That's another fun one to sing along with. I'll spare you my rendition, but it's a fun one to sing along.
Sweet Virginia is like sitting on the porch in the rain, just strumming on the acoustic.
Got to scrape the shit right off my shoes.
Yeah. Loving Cup is another hit single.
Sweet Black Angel's amazing. We got to mention every single song. Torn and Frayed is amazing. We forgot Casino Boogie. Happy. That's a
Happy. That's a Keith tune.
Keith tune, and that was a hit. Keith's first hit. I think that's Keith's only hit with the Stones as far as an actual hit single where he's singing
Happy
lead.
And something. Well, You Got the Silver, I think he does well with.
I don't think that was a hit. He sings on a lot of good songs, but as far as something that became a radio staple, I mean, you hear Happy on the radio.
Oh yeah, that's the only one you hear really.
Yeah,
of Keith, but
Turd on the Run, Ventilator Blues, which Mick Taylor gets a writing credit, which this'll be relevant to the Mick Taylor story as we unfold the journey. But on this one, Jagger, Richards, and Taylor. So there you go.
And there was a rarity because Mick just was not getting any.
We'll get to that. Yeah, that turns into an issue. Yeah.
I always liked All Down the Line.
All Down the Line. Just Want to See His Face.
Stop Breaking Down.
Talk about Jesus. Just want to see.
Stop Breaking Down is a Robert Johnson song.
Yep. Let It Loose. Shine a Light. Soul Survivor. Just good shit, man. Every song on here is fucking perfect. And if there's one note you don't like, fuck you, because this is a perfect album.
It really is.
It is. It's an amazing
double album. At the time, 72, the Beatles had a double album with the White Album. The Byrds had Queen of the Rodeo was a double album. There weren't a lot of double albums. Jimi Hendrix with Electric Ladyland was a double album. So I think there were bands wanting to do a double album for that notoriety, which may have influenced Physical Graffiti when they did that.
Yeah, I see a lot of parallels between Physical Graffiti and Exile on Main Street as far as just being these magnum opus masterpieces from both bands, and where they're just throwing everything at the wall. They're just a surge of creative energy, and they're just throwing it all out there. I love Physical Graffiti. It's amazing.
It's very similar too, and just how as it winds down towards the end of Exile, Black Country Woman, and you think of Sweet Black Angel. You just certain songs, come to mind. Soul Survivor, and some of the stuff on the In the Light and stuff like that is, to me, it's very similar.
Yeah.
But both of those albums, just Old and New Testament rock and roll Bible for me.
For sure. For sure.
But man.
So then after that, we get into the Imperfect Stones album. You were saying earlier on that, their set consists of the 60s stuff plus the Grand Slam stuff. I'd have to add, it's the 60s stuff plus the Grand Slam stuff, which is the meat of it, and then the post Grand Slam up through Tattoo You, which is pretty much the history. The history we'll be covering, but the quality took a dip after Exile, but there was a good, still consistent. Stones albums were still good albums up through Tattoo.
Well, I would say it's unapologetic. If you put Goat's Head Soup up next to Exile, I mean, clearly the weight is, it's
Exile's, but if you put Goat's Head Soup up to any album by any other band, 95% of the time, Goat's Head Soup's going to be better.
And I would say Goat's Head Soup is unapologetic. They're like, hey, we know we just put out Exile. We're gonna kind of downshift a little bit. And Goat's Head Soup is a very mellow record.
There's no song on here I dislike. I'm just saying there's a downslope in masterpiece-ness, right?
Yeah.
You can, if any band that can do 4 masterpieces in a row, they've shot their wad on the masterpiece front probably. It's really hard to do one masterpiece,
right?
Let alone 4 in a row.
But I would say they're unapologetic. They're like, look, we're going to change it up. Dancing with Mr. D is completely different from anything they've done
Well,
before.
it's funk.
Um,
It's a funk jam. Like Monkey Man is a kind of funk rock jam. Dancing with Mr. D is just funk. They're just getting into
yeah,
the funk now, and
yeah,
you'll see that on the next album too with Fingerprint File. It's just pure
yeah,
funk, and it's a
yeah. I
good
mean,
song.
they're just getting into they've done all the the Grand Slam, and now they're taking you somewhere else. But Goat's Head does have some standout tracks. Do Do
They're
Do,
all great.
Heartbreaker,
Heartbreaker's
Angie.
great and fun to
Yeah,
sing along with.
um, Angie and Winner. Can You Hear the Music? And obviously Star Star. Uh, this album to me was living in little 5 points and just at the lowest point in my life where I just did not know what the hell I was going to do.
Well, this
Uh,
is after your dad skipped town.
yeah.
Your girlfriend wasn't ready to get married yet. She's still living with her parents, I think. And
Yeah.
so
And I should have never taken that anywhere, but
well, yeah, we know, yeah, the
the
Terminator.
whole, just the whole living in little 5 points that your where your living's not very stable.
Weren't you
Was
living in this like communal house in that band that there's an Atlanta band called Something, and they were like an
no
aspiring.
no we were hanging out at a different house where they would party. I
Okay,
was going there a lot, but no, I was behind. I there was
Dairy
an
Queen,
old
right? You're
yeah
across the
no it
street from the Dairy Queen,
was
Little Five
Zestos. It was a
Zestos,
Zestos,
Zestos, yeah,
and
yeah.
it was an old mansion that had a bunch of people living there. It was just a very strange uh,
Yeah, it was just
time.
it was a flop house basically. You were
Yeah,
living the Charles Bukowski life at
yeah.
that point.
It was really, really dark days. But I would go over to this pizza joint, and one day it was just a bitter, cold, rainy day, and I wrote on the wall because at Fellini's people would write on the wall, and I wrote something about been a long, cold winter, and then I came back the next day and somebody had written and my feet ain't been touching the ground, and I was like, oh my, like somebody knew
Yeah, they knew this
where my
obscure song from Goat's Head Soup that you were
but
quoting.
but
Yeah,
they knew where my heart was because I was
yeah.
just so
That's the
lost.
opposite of when I wrote "You Are a Fool, but That's Cool. It's All Right" from Black Sabbath's Voodoo on my desk at school,
Oh yeah.
and in girls' handwriting. I came back the next day. What does that even mean?
Oh Jesus.
So at least you got some empathy with your graffiti.
Yeah, yeah. But so Goat's Head, I think, is like some bands if they hit a stride and manage to put out like some just epic albums. Some bands can't recover. They just uh, will almost break up after a great album. Um, and then
I would argue that they were putting out solid stuff up through Tattoo You. We got a little one in the house here. Come pimp the website, buddy.
El Condor.
Pimp the
Check out
website.
the website. We got merch. We got plushies. We got t-shirts. We got Funko Pops. We got Lego sets. We got everything, including nuclear missiles.
All
Nuclear
right.
missiles, everybody.
All that is apparently at snagsandsilky.com, ladies and gentlemen.
It's like a whirlwind comes in.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But yeah, so Exile and then Goat's Head, I feel like they just go off in a different direction with no apologies. And I feel that what they took with Goat's Head ends up kind of turning into what the late 70s when they were just on fire again.
Yeah, this is just kind of mellow. There's a mellower vibe. It wasn't this white hot R&B, but and there were a lot of mellower songs, but then they just throw in these funk jams that were just pure funk, really influenced by the funk bands of the 70s.
Yeah. But I think it's their first 70s record.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
captures
It feels that
a
it
different
feels
vibe.
70s. The Grand Slam are just timeless rock and roll records, but
Yeah.
it starts to feel 70s with this one for sure. Yeah.
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 And
And then
then
the Star is just notable because it's about a groupie, tricks with fruit are kind of cute, and giving head to Steve McQueen, and all kinds of, just the lyrics are hilarious. Do you remember when we were walking through the mall at Phipps Plaza, and we were in a big funk phase? We're listening to a lot of 70s funk, and we were talking about how this song, because it's called Star, but the lyric is star, fucker, star, fucker, star, fucker, star, fucker, star. And we were talking about how it could be a funk song, star, funky star, funky star, funky star. And then I'm going bonk, 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 while you're singing it funky star instead of star fucker. And I'm doing the air bass slapping licks. And this dude comes walking down this, like, we're in our mid-20s. This 45-year-old black dude comes walking toward us and just starts laughing. He's like, I know I ain't seen two white boys busting out the funk like that. It was fucking hilarious.
I don't remember that, but
it's Phipps Plaza, man. Yeah,
that's
we were
good
singing
shit, man.
Funky Star with air bass slapping.
You can't fuck with the air bass.
We do have to mention the deluxe edition 2020 comes with some extra tracks. Scarlet, that Jimmy Page played on.
Yeah.
All the Rage and Criss Cross, not to be confused with the terrible 90s rap group.
Oh yeah, no.
And then Exile had some good bonus tracks too. You should check those out. But some good shit on these reissues.
We have a playlist called Stoned, which collects everything. I did do a playlist of just the Brian Jones years, and I think I'm going to slap together a playlist of just these Mick Taylor years.
We'll get that when he gets that done. We'll put that on the website for sure.
Yeah, but then I think they kick it up a little bit more dancier or energetic with It's Only Rock and Roll. If You Can't Rock Me.
Yeah. And this one, Jimmy Miller was gone. It was produced by the Glimmer Twins, which was Keith Richards and Mick Jagger. So it's a self-produced album, and I love it. It's phenomenal.
Oh, it's very dance. If You Can't Rock Me, and then Ain't Too Proud to Beg, the old R&B cover.
Yeah.
It's Only Rock and Roll was all through the 70s. Tremendous song.
And I love how they say inspiration by Ronnie Wood. Like they just couldn't bring themselves to give. I'm not sure. I guess it was inspired by Ronnie Wood, but that's what it says. It's Only Rock and Roll, but I like it. Inspiration by Ronnie Wood. Let's look at the storyline behind that. Recorded in late '73, it's credited to Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, although future Rolling Stones guitarist Ronnie Wood collaborated on it. So before he was in the band, he collaborated with Mick.
He was hanging out with them, and at the time he was in the Faces.
And they didn't give him credit, which this is going to become an issue, as you'll see. Yeah.
But yeah, Time Waits for No One, excellent track on there.
Yeah.
Dance Little Sister, another just funky jam. And then, if you really want to be my friend, really could have almost been on Black and Blue. Same kind of
if you
real
really
mellow vibe.
Be my friend.
And then Fingerprint File on here. That's just a jam.
Yeah.
Really good, funky bass on there. Bill Wyman really basing it up on this one.
Fingerprint File is one of my favorite Stones songs. It's one that I should make a Stones funk album and just only the funk songs. you know, which would end, of course, with Undercover, which is one of the best funk jams ever.
Oh, yeah.
But Fingerprint File is right up there, and it's you know about it's a spot. I guess it's a kind of paranoia. If you ever seen the movie The Conversation, it's that same theme. You know, I'm being spied on. I know the FBI is taking pictures of me, ultraviolet light. You know, all kinds of crazy shit like that.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Keeping files on me 6 feet high gets me down. Anyways, so by the time this album is out, there's a lot of tension between Mick Taylor and specifically Keith. Keith has mentioned that he insinuated that he felt threatened by Mick Taylor because Mick Taylor was such an amazing guitar player.
Right.
And jealous of Mick Taylor. When Mick Taylor came back there were some extra tracks that remained unfinished from Exile on Main Street that they put on the deluxe reissue. And Mick Taylor actually came back in the studio and laid down leads on those around 2020, I think. And Keith is said to have said to Mick Taylor while they were in the studio doing that, and this is like 5 years ago, just shaking his head and goes, I always did hate you for that. Because he's just laying down these amazing leads. But the main point of contention was Keith's off doing heroin and shit, and Mick Taylor's hanging around writing songs with Mick Jagger. And according to Mick Taylor, he co-wrote Sway off of Sticky Fingers.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Moonlight Mile off of Sticky Fingers. Winter, which you mentioned, off of Goat's Head Soup. Time Waits for No One off of It's Only Rock and Roll. And Till the Next Goodbye off of It's Only Rock and Roll. And every one of those songs, the songwriting credit says Jagger Richards.
Yeah.
So when you're a band as big as the Rolling Stones and you're fucking somebody out of writing credits, you're fucking them out of a tremendous amount. That's those 5 songs. That's probably retirement money right now. If you got co-writing,
because those albums are going to sell in the millions, and they have
forever.
You know,
and
if you look at Metallica, Jason Newsted has 3 writing credits, and to this day, he will
never have to work again.
Yeah.
He never has to work again
because of those writing credits. And I would say Jason left out of frustration, same kind of situation. He would, he was the sole songwriter for Flotsam and Jetsam.
Yeah.
Joins Metallica, and he's there for, 14 years, 86 to 2000.
Yeah.
He's got 3 songwriting credits.
Right. Well, I don't think they were ripping him off like Keith and Mick were. I think they were just not letting him write.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, which is equally as frustrating. But anyways, there's so basically, Mick Taylor's just rightfully so feeling ripped off, and it's like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And goes off to do absolutely nothing for the rest of his life. Except he did I got a YouTube clip. He comes back and played with the Stones pretty recently, probably around the time. I'm not exactly sure what year it was, but sometime in the 2000s, 2010s, whatever. Sometime in the last 20 years on one of their tours. He's up on stage with them, ripping out a great rendition of Can't You Hear Me Knocking. I will put that on the Click Pit so you cats can watch that. But Mick Taylor, he basically just got fed up. And to this day, like someone asked him at one point, decades later, why did you leave the Rolling Stones? And he said, I've been asking myself that same question ever my whole life.
Oh yeah.
So,
we've
there's only one thing
out that Pete Best was fired from the Beatles.
There's only one thing worse than not getting credit on 5 Rolling Stones songs, and that's not being in the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
So if he thought he was missing out on money, not getting credit on those songs, he missed out on millions just leaving the band. He could have just been in there like Ronnie Wood and just shut the fuck and just stopped writing. Hey, Keith, what do you want me to play?
Case in point, Brad Whitford, Tom Hamilton, Joey.
Yeah. Just
they were referred
to
as the irrelevant 3, while Aerosmith toured the world and they made their money.
Yeah, and just do solo albums if you want to get your yayas out.
Right.
He didn't do jack shit after that, and he would have been much better off just sucking it up and sticking it out. Because
I mean, I will say he did some great stuff with John Mayall before the Stones. And then on the Stone stuff, he's done some solo stuff. I don't care. Don't care, Mick.
Yeah, no one cares. Someone was asking when Keith Richards, he's dropped a couple solo albums. Keith Richards and the Expensive Winos that have been pretty successful with critics, and they sold a decent amount. And he's done tours.
Yeah, and those are good records.
I remember in the 80s, it was right before they got back together to do Steel Wheels. I was reading an interview with Keith, and he was in the middle of promoting his solo album, and the journalist was like, so Mick Taylor left and has tried to do solo stuff. Mick Jagger has done some solo stuff and nobody liked it. Here you are having a successful album, a successful career. What's the secret? And he goes, I'm not named Mick.
Yeah.
Something to do with the name Mick.
Yeah, something. But Keith is true to who he is. He's not trying to do some dancey or Let's Work, as we always like to point out.
Yeah, Let's Work was a terrible Mick Jagger solo song. That Mick's problem was that he would just try to get, what are the kids into now? Let's glom onto that.
Mick Jagger's 3rd solo album is fucking incredible, and I would tell you to go track that.
That's
down.
The one produced by what's his name?
Rick Rubin, I think.
Rick Rubin, yeah. So Rick Rubin produces an album. He always gets people to go back to their roots, but
it's called Wandering Spirit, and
that's a good album. Yeah, that's a good album. Because Rick Rubin was like, "Hey, man, why don't you sound like the Stones? Let's do an album where you sound like the Stones, where you're not trying to sound like fucking Britney Spears or whatever."
Or it's more of a R&B. I mean, he taps into some. He does a cover of "Use Me" by Bill Withers, so he kind of taps into that R&B Bill Withers bit a little bit. But that's a great fucking record.
I remember listening to that and liking it, yeah. But that was that Keith Richards interview was before that. That was in the '90s when he did Wandering Spirit. But
yeah. But anyway, yeah. So that's It's Only Rock and Roll.
Nick Taylor years.
A shame to see Mick Taylor leave under just kind of just like he didn't really have an idea why, he just did it. And but that Ride the Wave concept I had, you think of some of these bands, they just do 3 or 4 albums and they just really ride the wave. I would say Motley Crue did it. They had 2 solid records and then they just rode the wave and steady putting half-baked bullshit out, but the
fan base keeps coming back.
Coming to hear.
I think Dr. Feelgood is a produced enough album that it's got some cohesiveness, but
but I mean,
nowhere near the raw punk energy of those first 2 albums. Yeah,
look at Ozzy. Ozzy puts out 2 incredibly legendary first 2 solo albums, and then
rides the wave.
Has some hits here and there, but it's just ride that wave. And the Stones have 3 decades of really brilliant creativity, and You know,
They've been
we're gonna,
riding the wave
yeah,
ever
you know,
since.
and not, it's not insulting, but it's incredible how just your masses, the mass public, they don't need a lot, and they will be loyal, and they will just you don't have, Alice Cooper,
Yeah.
there's 5 incredible albums with that band, and then he's been riding the wave.
Yeah. It's a good concept. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, and you can apply it to so many bands.
Yeah, for sure.
Where you knee jerky, but hey, wait a minute, these guys are amazing. No, they're really,
The Rush episode is a perfect example. Although they put out a good handful of albums, but then after the early '80s, they're riding the fucking wave, and they rode it all the way until recently.
And again, just they're riding the wave, and they might have a couple songs that you love. Man, that's a good song. Okay, but the rest of the albums,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yep. Well, it'll be interesting talking about the rest of the Stones catalog up through Tattoo You, and then there's Undercover. She's Hot and Undercover the Night, I think, still maintain that quality, but the rest of that album is just the dip starts to happen, and we'll talk about it. Yeah, we'll get to that.
Dirty Work, that stuff. It's like, they're just riding the wave,
Yeah.
And again, there may be some songs on there that are okay. That's good, but it's the wave is gone.
It's not Tattoo You.
Yeah.
So we'll get to that. Stones Part 3 coming up soon. And then we got all kinds of shit on the calendar. So all you millions of listeners out there, stop beating down our doors and emailing us and calling us constantly and showing up at our houses. Just be patient. We got shit coming.
We'll get to you.
Chill out a little bit.
Yeah. So that playlist is being sent now.
Nice.
So you can slap that in there.
All right.
But anyway, that's the Mick Taylor years, kids.
There you go. Peace out, motherfuckers.
Deuces.